Hi, my name is Jane, and this is the blue pepper tomato. Today we are making oatmeal. It's actually going to be oatmeal that is going to be delicious because it's going to have a variety of different fruits in it. So I actually thought the best name to describe it would be Indigo Sangria baked in oats. When you think about sangria, you think of a variety of ingredients, but the first ingredients that you think about is fruit. So first we're going to start off with the dry ingredients. Right here I have 2 cups of oats. Oats is really something that redistributes your fat, makes you feel a lot fuller, and it is an anti-inflammatory. So what makes it really interesting is that it fills you up pretty fast and it keeps you from eating throughout the day. I also have 1 teaspoon of baking powder right in here too, so I'm just going to pour this in a giant bowl right now. Alright. Next, I'm going to be working with red delicious apples today, and I'm going to be using 3 red delicious apples. Right over here, I already have them chopped up. I have put a teaspoon of cinnamon in here. And you want apples that are relatively firm, because anytime you're baking an apple, you're really going to be breaking it down and making it softer. And you also want to cut them where they're fairly large, unless you're feeding a child, but you want them fairly large because you want them to have a juicy, kind of filled up firmness to them, and that happens when they are fairly large. So just pour these right in. The dry ingredients go in this big bowl. And then next I have cinnamon. I have a tablespoon of cinnamon, and I have a teaspoon of nutmeg. So I'm just going to pour this right in here. Next I have a combination of cherries, and I have sweet and tart cherries right in here, and that is going to be 1½ cups, and I also have 1½ cups of blueberries. These were actually frozen, and I defrosted them simply by putting them next to a fireplace. So you want to make sure that you, however, drain them, but you want to make sure that you save those juices. I mean, they're full of nutrients, full of minerals, so I'm just going to pour the reservoir of juices into a cup. You also do not want to squeeze them. Naturally, the juices inside the fruits, they'll get so hot that they'll explode. So that's why you don't want to, and that's a really good thing that a lot of the juices are going to be released, because that's really where a lot of the nutrients are found. But that's why you don't need to add any additional juices. Something fell in. Okay. I mean, this is pretty expensive juice. I mean, if you went to any sort of organic store, such as Whole Foods, I mean, they might charge you $20 just for a container that would be maybe yay big. So let's just try some. That's really good. It's really sweet too, and it's natural. So we are going to pour these delicious plum fruits right in here. So far the apples and the cherries and the blueberries, they're commonly found in sangria. So we are sticking to the sangria theme, which is awesome. Alright. So, and in case I didn't mention this, we're going to be using 3 to 4, depends on the size, of red delicious apples today. One of the reasons I use these 2 is the firmness, and at the same time it was a lot more inexpensive than the other competitors when it comes to apples. So next I have 1/4 of a cup, as well as 3/4 of a cup of pecans. So 1/4 a cup of walnuts, 3/4 a cup of pecans. Something that is very interesting about walnuts is that they're full of fatty acids. They also have the ability to dilate your blood vessels, which leads to relaxation. So, also pecans are full of phytosterols. They're really great for the prostate, an issue a lot of men suffer with throughout their lives. And urinary tract symptoms, pecans can really help with issues like that. So, we do want a full cup. You can really mix up any types of nuts. But I have just chose pecans and walnuts. Okay, so just coarsely chopped. Alright, so let me break a couple of these down. Just pour them right in here in the dry ingredients. Okay, so right now I'm just going to set aside all of these dry ingredients. Looks good, doesn't it? Great. So over here, I have simply combined a variety of white ingredients. So far, right away, I put 1/4 of a cup of safflower oil. And then I put a cup of almond milk. There's 1 tablespoon of vanilla extract. 1/4 a cup of maple syrup. Let's see, I have 1/2 cup of unsweetened applesauce. And there is the last ingredient that I need to put in, besides the 1/2 cup of plain yogurt that's in here, are the 2 eggs. So I'm just going to crack those and put those right in. What's really neat about adding 1/4 a cup of maple syrup is that it really has a lower glycemic index. So it's much better to use maple syrup than using granulated sugar. So I'm going to quickly whisk all these ingredients together. Just going to put the eggs in last. That's something that I've done when I've made this recipe before. I also have almond milk. That's something new that I put in here. What I think is really good about almond milk is it's great for people that are lactose intolerant. It has iron, riboflavin in it, and it's really great for healing and strengthening your muscles and bones. So this looks pretty mixed up pretty well. Just going to set this to the side. And I'm just going to pour it right into the big bowl. You always want to make sure that you have a huge bowl when you're working with all of these ingredients. You ever want it to overflow or have to split them up? You want it all together. Okay, you can just use the whisk too. Okay. You know what, I have already preheated my oven. It's just about to ding in about 22 seconds. And I preheated it at 375 degrees. And I'm going to be cooking this for about a 1/2 hour, or baking it for a 1/2 hour. So right here, I'm going to be using a type of pie pan. You can, however, use muffin tins. You can use a cast iron pan, a casserole pan, so it's really up to you. Again, here I have the safflower oil, and I am just going to put a little bit right in here. Just using my hand to rub it around. Make sure that I get all of the edges. This. And you know what? This might actually not all fit. Last time I did use actually 2 of these. But for right now, I'm just going to be using 1. So, you can use a spoon, you know, if you don't want to get your hands all dirty. The fun thing about cooking, though, is that it's completely acceptable to go a little wild, so. Alright. So I think I have it mixed up fairly well. I'm going to set this to the side. So I'm going to try to show you as much as possible without spilling all of it. Here, you know, I'm going to walk over. So get a close up. So, what's neat about working with oatmeal too is that it really absorbs a lot of the flavors. And again, fruits are natural sweeteners, so you don't need to add a lot of additional sweeteners to it. But the oatmeal tends to amplify and expand because of the milk and because of the natural juices that are resonating in the meal. So, you know what? It looks great. I'm going to put it in right now. Next, in order to go along with the sangria theme, I am going to be making a brandy maple syrup peaches topping for the oatmeal dish. So, right here I have about 12 ounces of peaches. You can use canned peaches. Just make sure that you're not getting peaches that are in a rich syrup, because you will be adding maple syrup to this. And naturally, brandy is fairly sweet compared to other hard alcohols. So I'm going to be using a cast iron pan. Any pan will work just great though. So pour these in. Okay. This is a really aged brandy. We have a lot of different alcohols here at my parents' house. And I'm just going to be using 1 teaspoon of this. One thing to keep in mind, if you were planning on putting this topping in the oven, it smells good. Hard alcohol is flammable, or really any alcohol is flammable. And so, in the past, I have made a brandy apple pie, and it did slightly start on fire, so make sure that you're always monitoring the dish that you're making. So I'm just going to put a teaspoon in. If you want to add a little bit more, it's completely depending on what type of flavor that you want. But I would say you can add rum or brandy. I would probably stick to maybe the more sweeter type of hard alcohols. So, all right. You know what? I think I'm actually going to try a little bit in this. Just a little bit. Again, this is aged, so it's always good to test try it. I did earlier to make sure that it tastes okay before you mix it in with your meal, because you know it could really destroy or harm a meal if it didn't taste appropriately. Ooh, that definitely adds flavor to it. It's really good. All right. So then I am just going to be adding a teaspoon, and again a tablespoon, it's up to you, of maple syrup. Always when you're working with cooking, use fresh maple syrup, like 100% maple syrup from, you know, trees of Vermont or Maine. You definitely do not want to use the maple syrup that really isn't maple syrup that you can find on the shelf at any grocery store, because all it is pure sugar. This has a very high sugar content, but again, it's natural sugars. And so I think the body does react over time differently to something that's natural rather than to something that is artificial. So here is the combination of it right here. And I'm just going to be putting this on the stove for a couple of minutes, just until the peaches are a little bit more softened and braised a little bit more. Alright, I will see you in a little bit, and we can see the finished product. Great, thank you.